Hi, this is srinivas associated with DURGASOFT software solutions. Now we are going to see communication types of communication training section, and it is a continuation of a previous section. Now this types of communication will vary according to the situation and as well as according to the position of a job in an organization or anywhere in the society. So let us understand what types of communication which are very essential to know this types of communication, and awareness must be there for each and every person, because at the workplace or in the general life we will be coming across all this type of communication in our lives. So let us see what type of communication are there, and how we are interacting, as well as the different communications which are involved at different locations. Now we'll see the presentation. Now we'll see what are the types of communication, and the section overview will be like this: types of communication, what is verbal communication, and then why is verbal communication, types of verbal communication, and what is non-verbal, and then types of non-verbal communication. Now we will see types of communication. This is the slide what we saw in the previous training session. Now we are going to see the classification of types of communication will be like this: verbal communication, non-verbal. Under verbal communication, written communication and oral communication will be there, and basing on the oral communication, formal and informal will be there. At the same time, one way and two way communication will be there. Now we will see what is those things one by one. What is verbal communication? It encompasses any form of communication involving spoken words, written words, action or symbols. These are all various communication forms which are involved in this verbal communication. You can communicate with spoken by speaking, that is one. Written communication, whatever you want to communicate, you will be communicating through writing. Action, by postures, gestures, these are all various actions. You are communicating the information, idea, something, and etc. And symbols, through symbols, hearing impaired people always convey the communication through symbols. So let us see what further. Why verbal communication is required? It helps to clarify misunderstandings and provides missing information. Whatever the information is missing between the people, you can convey and you can communicate, as well as you can clarify the misunderstandings between the people. So written communication and oral communication are the very important thing. So types of communication, if you see, one-way communication is one of the type of verbal communication. In this, oral communication takes place in many contexts in which communication proceeds only in one way. That is, only one person is involved in this particular communication, and that too in one way. So that is examples like reading a book, reading a newspaper or a journal, or watching a television is nothing else one way communication. Now we will see other type of communication, that is two-way communication. It is through face-to-face, and then meetings, and then group discussion and telephone, etc. In this particular two-way communication, minimum of two persons are involved always, and communication between these two people or one to many communication keeps on going. That's why it is known as two-way communication. Now we will see what verbal communication, what it is mean. It is on the basis of means means what you are going to use in this communication. Okay, what you are going to use in this communication. So verbal communication is further classified into two, that is written communication and oral communication. Here the base what the center is using in written communication is writing, so it is called written communication. In oral communication the center is going to use only spoken words, that's why it is known as oral communication. So further if we see, written communication may be in the form of letters, notice, circulars, manuals, bulletin, office, memo, etc. These are all various examples of the written communication. What are the advantages of written communication? If you see the written advantages, these are the various advantages, and you can have specific clarity will be there in the case of written communication, because everything is written in words and it is in the black and white form, and the black and white forms can be like the legal records or references carefully formulated. Here in the written communication everything is clearly written, some form will be there, some structured format will be there, and it is also timely trackable. You can put dates, you can have the tracking, clear cut tracking for all these records. At the same time it saves your time and money, especially our time and money gets saved because of written communication. And at the same time involvement of the persons is there, and it is always motivational, and you can evaluate the written communication always. Okay, so written communication advantages. Coming to disadvantages, it is very expensive, it is suffers because of sender's bad language, and if the sender is not having good language, and if he is not aware of the any language vocabulary, etc., then it suffers a lot. And at the same time delay decisions which prove very costly. Sometimes written communication, it takes time to reach the sender, so delay is a very important one. So delay takes place. Once a delay takes place means it may be very costly for the organization. So now because of this reason the technology has taken over and mailing, emails have come into existence. Okay, so next we'll see the oral communication. Oral communication always takes through face-to-face, telephone, any other mechanical devices. Okay, so like buzzers, type telefax, like this. Okay, and advantages and disadvantages of oral communication are like this. It is excellent for speedy interchange of ideas. Speedy interchange of ideas will take place here because face to face, and it is through telephone, any other mechanical device. So immediately the receiver will receive the whatever the sender is going to communicate, and receiver may fail to ask questions. Sometimes receiver may not be in a position to ask questions. Receiver may not get a clear-cut idea. Sometimes the receiver may not get clear-cut ideas what the sender is communicating with him. It is very expensive when group spends long hours. Especially it will be very expensive. Say a big group is sitting and spending for long hours means then oral communication will become very expensive. And coming to disadvantages of oral communication, no legality. So there is no legal binding. Okay, and it is the lack of accountability. There is no responsibility or ownership as far as for any communication whatever is taken place through oral communication. At the same time low reference value. It will have low reference value, and then greater scope of errors will take place in this particular communication, and easily forgotten. One may forget very easily because of oral communication, and it is not at all useful for long distances. Now coming to oral communication, there are two types of oral communication according to the relationships. On the basis of relationships, formal communication is one of the type, and in any formal organization, it's a formal organization structure. When whatever the communication takes place in that organization, then it is known as formal communication. That is, here there is a particular direction of transmission of communication from top to bottom, bottom to top, and horizontal to vertical, vertical to horizontal, like this. So in the organization structure is like that. So right from the top to the bottom, bottom to top, and lateral. So this the organization structure is like that. So organization structure itself is, once it is like that, then what will happen? The communication between the people will be organized. Okay. And now informal communication is defined as the transmission of messages between group members. A team will be there, and whatever the communication between the team members is informal communication. On the basis of informal relations and understanding among people at the same time at a different level. Okay. So whatever the relationship is there is not at all taken into consideration, and the simple understanding is among the people is enough in this particular type of communication. And now we will see ways and effects of oral communication. In formal communication, flexibility concern, it is very less, accuracy is more, whereas in informal communication, flexibility is more and accuracy is very less. So it changes according to the relationship. Now what is non-verbal communication? Communication done by postures, gestures and facial expressions is nothing else your non-verbal communication. It is also known as body language. It is commonly known as body language. Now if you see the types of non-verbal communication, you will come across kinetics, proxemics, chronemics, paralanguage and appearance. If you see the kinesics, it is eye contact is considered as one of the most important aspects of non-verbal communication. So eye to eye contact is very important while communicating between the persons. That is known as kinesics. And facial expressions, that is like smiling, raising eyebrows, then frowning, etc. These are all facial expressions which are very important in kinesics. And in kinesics further, gestures, there is specific movement, that is like waving your hands, then pointing your finger, and then crossing your arms. These are all various gestures what a person will do in the gestures. And postures is another kinesics method of communication. The way you stand, the way you sit, the way you do walking. These are all various ways of expressing communication, and is the postures. Then next one is physical contact. When we physically interact with the other people, like how we will interact with the people physically, means shaking of hands, patting at back, hugging, slapping, punching, etc. These are all various physical contact of communicating. And proxemics, this refers to the distance maintained by the person with the other person. Say a person will be in the center of this circle, and the distance between the person, one may say will be in this inner circle, and next outer circle, and another further outer circle, and other further outer circle. If you take these circles, and if a person, two persons are within this space of first circle, that is 1.5 feet of circle, then this space is known as intimate space. So, and if the person between these two people, if it is within 4 feet, then it is known as personal space. And if it is 12 feet social space, and if it is beyond 12 feet or more than anything 25 feet is known as public space. So when a person two persons are interacting, they will interact within this circles, and this distance is known as various names with intimate space, person space, social space, and public space. And chronomics, it deals with time. Always time will be there, and time will be structured. It indicates one's personality and attitude. Then paralanguage. Paralanguage means it deals with vocal qualities such as volume, pitch, rate, pronunciation, stress, and intonation patterns. Say, if a person speaks with a other person with a loud voice, loud volume of voice, then that is a paralanguage communication. If a pitch is longer or shorter, then it is a paralanguage. Rate means here it may be the rate of words, and whatever the rate of words within a minute, that is a paralanguage. And pronunciation, if the person knows pronunciation, he speaks correctly, and then according to the pronunciation he applies stress and intonation patterns also. And voice quality determines message effectiveness. Sometimes the person who knows each and everything of this paralanguage things, then his voice quality will vary according to the message. Then what will happen? The message effectiveness will be different. And to be a successful speaker, one has to use all these elements effectively. If you want to be a successful speaker, then you have to use all these elements. Otherwise you won't become a successful speaker. Voice modulation is very essential. And check it periodically by recording. Voice modulation, so you have to understand what is voice modulation. The stress where it is required, you have to put the stress. Where the stress is not required, you should not apply the stress. That means you have to go up, you have to come down, you have to be in the middle of the frequency, and that is variation. You have to show the variations. That variation is essential. And what you have to do, you have to check periodically by recording voice. So basing on now it is the time for review. If you have any doubts, please let me know. Any doubts? No? Right, thank you.